No need to whine, it's Whiny Palooza. Have some wine and join us on the Whiny Palooza podcast with Rebecca Green.
Welcome to the Whiny Palooza podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Green. I'm a wife, mother of three, and licensed clinical social worker. I also have 3 fur babies at home too. My passion has always been to help children and their families. I always dreamed of being a wife and a mother. Parents are always learning through their struggles, failures, and successes and joys. I am no stranger to this wild ride of parenting, and I know behind every great parent lies a team of supportive friends and family. I want to be part of your support system. I want you to know that you are not alone. We are in this parenting world together. Join me every week for insightful discussions with experts on parenting and marriage, as well as other parents who have found the secret to successes in parenthood. You'll learn tips and tricks to make life with your family better than ever. I hope you will follow along with me while we dive into what it takes to achieve a happy family. Hello, everyone. This is Rebecca Green for the Whiny Palooza podcast, and I am super excited today. I have Dr. Jenn Gunsaullus here with us today. Hi, Dr. Jenn.
Hello, Rebecca. Happy to be here.
I'm so excited. She is one of the most fascinating ladies that I've ever done a deep dive on. I recommend that everybody listening go look up Dr. Jenn because you are going to love it as much as I did. I'm going to give you some bullet points, but it doesn't do her justice. She is a sociologist, a relationship coach, international intimacy speaker, author of From Madness to Mindfulness, Reinventing Sex for Women, and co-host of Sex Talk with Clint and the Doc. Oh, aren't they 2 separate podcasts, or am I screwing that up?
No, well, so I have Sex Talk with Clint and the Doc that I've been doing for 4 years with a local radio personality here in San Diego, Clint August. And then I just recently created a limited series, very personal vulnerability, or all around, vulnerability and my journey a year ago, called Trying to Feel Sexy Again at 48.
I knew there was another podcast.
Yes. Yeah.
I checked out your podcast. I checked out your TED Talks. Man, did I have fun. So I want to start with, what inspired you to become this is a tongue twister, mindful intimacy coach and executive relationship coach?
Yeah. Well, gosh, that could take up our whole half hour just because it's a long journey. But I can give you a couple different components of it. I mean, first of all, I got into the sex field initially as a speaker, as an undergrad years ago back in Pennsylvania at Lehigh University, because my roommate became a sexual health peer educator, and I thought it would be fun to join and get public speaking skills. And you get to talk about sex and do education on campus to fellow college students and give condom demonstrations and such. And then I became really fascinated about how people, men and women, make decisions around sex or don't make decisions, how much fear there is, how much shame, how much lack of communication, how many assumptions. People are doing this most intimate personal act, but not talking, assuming, being scared, not protecting themselves, feeling shame, getting drunk so that they can feel comfortable doing it. Like, there was just, there's so much around it. And I didn't necessarily feel like our sex education approaches were even scratching the surface of really empowering people to make healthy choices for themselves and communicate. So that's kind of the foundation of my work. And then over the years, about 15 years ago, I started coaching folks, individuals and couples, and doing intimacy and relationship and communication coaching. Because that is, while public speaking still is my real passion, I get to, which is amazing to say at this point, actually travel the world and speak to folks. Yeah, it's been a long time working up to this, but it's been a pretty amazing year. Which, side note, in 4 weeks, I'm flying to Dubai to do a retreat for some folks who are from Switzerland, but are going there for a retreat. And so I was like, okay, that's a pretty cool way to end the year of an amazing place I've never been to. So the public speaking and education in groups is my biggest passion, but to be able to work one-on-one with folks and as couples around communication, self-esteem, body image, overcoming shame. We are all in ever aging bodies, and we are in a society that kind of plasters sex everywhere, but does not really have frank, emotionally honest, vulnerable conversations or education around sex. And so all of us run into issues in one way or another. We can't not. So yeah, and so I'm you're asking what inspires me. What inspires me is to really create safe spaces for people to open up and learn about themselves, to explore, to overcome myths and misinformation, to appreciate their bodies and what they can do and not fixate on what they can't do, and learn how to create vulnerable, intimate, safe spaces for others, for their partners, and vice versa. Because to me, the most powerful, amazing, beautiful experience we can have with another human is to be raw and vulnerable, and let our walls down and all our beauty and messiness as a human, and create the safe space for someone else to do the same, where we're not worried about being judged or shamed or stigmatized, and we could just be there and to be seen and loved and accepted at that deep level of who we truly are, and have it be mutual. I think that is the most beautiful thing we can share and experience with another human being, and it's the most terrifying thing to do. So that is, long story short, that's my passion to want this. This is the most amazing thing, and whether it's sexual intimacy or emotional intimacy, like these are the depths of how we can connect with other humans and express ourselves. And there's just so much shame and misinformation around it that doesn't have to be there.
Why weren't you my sex education teacher? What the heck?
What did you learn much in sex education? Where did you grow up for sex education?
Okay, so I'm in Buffalo, New York, and I remember my first class, and I'm going to put class in quotes because I don't even know that it was a class, was in 5th grade. And they just taught us about our body. Like everything was just so, this is how it works.
Yeah, very clinical. Yeah.
There was no emotion, no, like nothing that you just explained. Obviously in 5th grade, we're not ready for that.
True.
But, into middle school and high school, I mean,
Yes.
None of us are taught, the real raw stuff.
Yeah, let alone like just the depth of what it is to be a human and the full range of emotions that we have to want to love, to want to feel loved, to want to be accepted and seen, and and happiness, but fear and shame and embarrassment and disappointment, and how all of that mixes together, and how we move through every world, every friendship we have, every relationship we have, every person we yearn for, like that complexity. And if we're educated around that and how to be mindful around that, which brings us back to the mindful intimacy piece, like really
Yes.
aware of our interpretations of situations, the emotions we're having, and literally where we feel them inside our bodies, that's so empowering to us, because then we can make new choices that feel right for ourselves, and not just want to bury our heads in the sand or lash out or get drunk or high or just scroll endlessly through TikTok to escape.
Couldn't agree more with all of that stuff. And I want to ask you about your book, okay? Madness to Mindfulness, Reinventing Sex for Women. Okay, where did this title come from? And like, what does this mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, I made up the title, and amazingly so, my publisher actually loved it also and let me keep it.
Love it.
Thank you. I had known that, like, so many folks are like, if you go the traditional publishing route, they're probably going to change your title, so don't get too attached to it. So I was like, all right. And they're like, no, we actually love it. And I was like, yes. So the madness to mindfulness, the madness that I'm speaking of is a lot of the stuff I was just talking about, but particularly for young women, like literally from birth, and we're assigned female at birth, people start commenting on our attractiveness. And how cute we are, how sweet we are. And we learn from a young age that our value and worth can be very tied to how others perceive our attractiveness, or whether we're nice enough, or whether we're a good girl, whether we follow the rules. And so a lot of that is, and then you put on top of it, then there's not great sex education. We don't necessarily even learn about our clitoris and pleasure and how it functions. We don't learn that desire is normal for females. And it's just, and then, women fake orgasms and or experience a lot of coercion in their sexual interactions and blame themselves and feel shame about how our bodies look and that they don't look quote unquote perfect, which is impossible. And so it's sort of endless, all of that. And then we get negative sometimes, and particularly in some religious upbringings, really negative shaming messages about any sort of sexual experience or desire for it. So, and then we're supposed to be adult women and get married and flip a switch and suddenly love our bodies and love sex and want to be really passionate. Like that's madness. Like that's insane.
It is.
And then we think there's something wrong with us, that we are broken or there's something wrong with us. And I was like, that's literal madness. It's not you. And so that's the beginning of my book, is talking about, I was like, you are normal. You're struggling with any of these things, you're totally normal. Like we are a product of our society and our families, and we can't not be. And if we're not happy with that, or it's not satisfying or connecting in the way we want, we're not getting the intimacy we want. I teach mindfulness skills and how to pay attention to what your thoughts are and your emotions, and then how to study them. And I give lots of coaching tools, and then how to make new choices, so you can cultivate over time the depth of intimacy that you want for yourself. But like, I'm not prescribing what that should look like. That is up to each woman to make her own choices.
So true. Well, and I don't even know if we know what healthy sexuality is. Do you feel like you can define what that is for us?
You know what? It's so funny because even like, even the term like sex positive, and I was part of a group for a while here in San Diego called Sex Positive San Diego, and I helped run the group and teach consent classes. And it's funny because it was easier to define what sex positive is by defining sex negative first. You know, so I feel like healthy sexuality in some ways is, we got to start with what's unhealthy or what's not helpful or what's harmful. Because otherwise, you know, like I said to folks, I go, if we didn't live with so much sex negativity around us in our society and our experiences, we wouldn't need sex positivity. It would just be normal. Yeah. Yes. Or body positivity. It would all just be normal. So I feel like even healthy sexuality is in that way, because I want to be mindful too, because sometimes folks will default and be like, oh, okay, you don't have any diseases, you don't have any da-da-da. But I was like, somebody can have herpes and absolutely have healthy sexuality. Like it's not related in that way. So I think even the term healthy, which I totally use because I haven't found a good replacement for it at all that connotes the same thing. But I know the word healthy can be so loaded for folks and feel judgmental to them, or even moralistic, which is, certainly not at all, my use of it. And I know that's not your use of it. So, but we don't even have good words for these things. That's the problem, because it's all seems so laden with judgment or stigma or comparison or something. Like it's like there's always sort of something wrong with us. So yeah, good question. I don't have a good answer.
No, I love how you answered it, and I love that maybe it's different for, I don't know that it could be the same for everybody.
No, not at all. I mean, I think the underlying things would be that that you're, releasing shame or working through shame, or at least aware of it, because, you're like, my healthy sexuality for me at 25 is totally different from me at 49 now. But the underlying factors are that I'm not feeling forced or coerced to do anything I don't want to sexually. I feel like I can communicate my needs. I feel respected. I might not love my body, but like, let's say I'm not mean to my body, like there's so much gray area. I think a lot of it is more like you're on a journey, that we're always growing and learning and evolving in how we treat and view ourselves, and how we treat and view others that we're in intimate situations with. How's that?
That is an awesome answer. I loved it.
Thank you.
So I told you before we started that I did a deep dive, and you said what was most interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
It was all interesting, but I love your mission statement. I don't know if your mission statement is still the same from when you announced this in maybe your TED Talk. Your mission statement is global female sexual empowerment. I told you I'd never hear that. Can you tell us what that looks like, and what can we do, everybody listening, to help achieve that?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, it's funny. I was like, oh shit, what's my mission statement? I was like, I don't know what you're going to say. This is very exciting. But that makes sense that it would have been if you pulled it for one of my TEDx talks, because they were like, one was 8 years ago. I think one was 10 years ago. So I'm glad it's been a while since I've watched them. So I'm glad I like it. That sounds great. I still agree with that.
Those were one of the first things that came up, by the way, when I Googled you.
Oh, good. Oh, that makes me happy. That's good. Yeah, well, so I mean, the global piece is definitely complicated in and of itself. But like the female sexual empowerment piece is a lot of what we're talking about, what we just talked about, what healthy sexuality is. And you know, what that's going to look like in, Buffalo, New York for you, or San Diego for me, or other areas of our country, or Dubai, or, Saudi Arabia or China, even various areas of China, so like there's so much variability within that. And, we could easily look at women in other countries and be like, wow, that's really unhealthy sexuality. But I don't, first of all, that's not fair. And our sexuality is within constraints, because maybe somewhere we go and we visit like a place where everybody's naked all the time and they look at us and we have to wear clothes and they're like, they're so unhealthy in their sexuality. But we don't have a choice here, because if we go outside naked, we're going to get arrested and get in trouble. Right. So we all have, we do have societal boundaries, we have personal boundaries, we have moral boundaries. But I think always sort of reflecting on those and trying to figure out what's authentic for you within, what's not going to get you in trouble. Because I'm a sociologist, that's what my PhD is in. So that context is important, but also realizing, well, maybe you could pick up and move somewhere else if this really wasn't the great fit. But many people just, do not have the opportunity or the possibility of that. So, but yeah, anyway, I'm digressing. But the female sexual empowerment, yeah, it's everything we've been talking about. Like, to me, empowerment is having a choice that you didn't have before. So when you learn something new about your body and your body's pleasure, now you have a choice that you didn't have before. When you realize that the abuse you experienced as a child, and you can really see, wow, that was not my fault. I did not do anything to do that, and can release the shame of that. All of a sudden you're going to have new choices in how you interact with others and how you communicate with others. So all of that is, and again, I use mindfulness and compassion skill building for folks to teach them how to get clear on what interpretations and messages and stories that they carry around their bodies and sex and relationships and dating and marriage and gender role socialization and all of those things, and realize that, we've inherited a lot of these stories from society and religion and parents, and not necessarily anybody trying to harm us, but they could be, holding on to these beliefs very much could harm us. And then they live in us, in our emotions about ourselves. And then literally we feel those emotions everywhere from, like a anxiety in our chest, or, the butterflies in our solar plexus if we're afraid of being judged, or if you think your partner's cheating on you, you might get a dropping feeling in your belly or feel nauseous in your belly. Or I've worked with women over the years that literally have trouble speaking their truth, and they literally feel it as a constriction in their throat. Yes. And so our body has so much wisdom for us. It often feels uncomfortable, like shame feels really icky in our chest. And we don't want to feel it. And so we try to numb ourselves or distract ourselves from it. And so, but I teach, everybody, all genders, but particularly as connected to my book and our topics here, I teach women how to actually have the courage to sit with all of that, even if it's 5 seconds longer than they ever did before, because now they have a choice that they didn't have before. So I just keep coming back to that with empowerment. Yeah.
I love the baby steps, because I think all of us think too big when we think about steps we need to take. So I love that baby step that you just described.
Yeah. And that's, that is, we know with brain science and neuropsychology, that is how we make change. We are just trying to rewire our brain bit by bit, and we can't do that. We can't do like massive things because it won't stick, and we'll just default back to our old neural pathways and ways of doing things, patterns, habits. And that's our brain just trying to be efficient. So bit by bit, with little practices, those baby steps and accountability, and just doing it regularly, that's how we start to rewire our brains in ways of our choosing. So it's important to be kind to yourself in the process and do little bits of it. But just stick to that bit by bit. And that's how then after a year, you look back and you're like, oh, son of a bitch, I am a very different person now. And I am really proud of myself. And I'm so glad I started this process, even though it was really, really hard. And I didn't think I could do it.
That's awesome. Yeah. Excellent explanation. And I think that people do not know that. They don't know that little
Awesome.
steps is how we get change.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So, we both talk to a lot of women. I'm not saying that men don't have this issue too, but it's mostly women that tell me that they don't want to have sex.
Mm-hmm.
They're not as interested. They feel bad about it. What do you say to women who want to, but just don't seem very interested?
Yeah. And is this primarily women in long-term relationships?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, and so I mean, the first place I always start with that is like, that's pretty normal. We don't think it's normal. We think we're broken or wrong, but I think, there's a bunch of factors you look at, but just physiologically, many women are not wired to maintain a high level of desire and passion for the same person in a long-term relationship. Because a lot of, what we consider hot, good sex is all based on the neurochemicals and this neurochemical cocktail of early lust and love. And for many folks, and particularly women in long-term relationships, that can start to drop quite a bit, anywhere from 8 months to 3 years to 5 years. Sometimes folks might maintain it longer, but then they have kids, or they go through perimenopause or menopause, or they have a surgery or something. They go on antidepressants. There's so many other factors. They gain weight and then feel bad about their bodies. Like there's just, it's sort of, and they're overstressed with jobs. I keep wanting to stop and I keep coming up with a million other reasons.
No, you're right.
There's so many reasons.
Yeah. And women can't turn their brain off from who I talk to. It's like, the shift from the day to the bedroom. Like it's a very,
Yeah. And so to go down that path of like something so first of all, just for women to know this is normal, there's nothing wrong with you. It doesn't mean your relationship or marriage is broken. It doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're not attracted to your partner. And it's important for their partners to know that as well, because they often feel rejected. And just to realize it's totally normal. And you're going to have to work as a team to figure out how to create a new version of desire and sexuality. And so instead of what came easy before, it's something you need to be intentional about and work on a little bit every day, a few times a week, something to start rewiring yourself in new ways to remember, oh, I am a sexual woman. And so like the one thing you just mentioned, which is again, why mindfulness is so powerful, is that for so many women, I help them, okay, how do you get out of your head and just present in your body in the first place? And then once you're present in your body, then how do we create an entryway into sexuality and a way of your body feeling sexual? Because otherwise, if you're stuck in your head and your partner like starts licking your nipple or grabbing your ass or something, it literally can feel like a violation because it feels so far off from where your brain and bodies are. And that is so common. And so, I work with women and I work with couples and partners about how do you ease into this? How do you, maybe you want to sit and have 20 minutes of genuine quality time of talking about your day. And that helps you settle it while you're holding hands. And there's no phone or distractions, which I know with kids isn't always easy to get, but little bits of time like that. So you actually feel then emotionally open, present in your body and emotionally open and connecting with your partner. And then what is it like if they start kissing your neck or if they give you a shoulder massage, like something, what is it that helps relax your body and ease into it? I know sometimes I was thinking about this recently. I've talked to a number of women over the years. They'll be like, yeah, it's amazing. Like every once in a while, my husband comes home and I'm actually kind of horny. So I'm like, great. I can't wait for him to walk through the door. Like, we're just going to do it. And then the wife is like, yeah. And then he starts talking and he says something stupid. And I'm like, all right, I'm done with this. You just ruined it.
Oh my goodness. It's so true. It's
I know.
True.
So it's like, I think that can be helpful then, especially, now that we've got easy phones and texting to be like, hey, just saying, don't say a word when you walk in, just come find me. But like, you got to tell ahead of time that they know that might happen. And then they know just like, just literally don't say anything. Even if they think it's funny, no, like nothing, just zip, 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 just be quiet. Just come into the bedroom.
That's perfect.
And then there's there's one of the things that I really love that's available now just in the past few years for women in these situations is the audio erotic apps that they can listen to. Like Dipsy is one. I forget the names of some others. Those things, some of them are very high quality for like 20 minutes. You can listen to it, in headphones while you're doing dishes, while you're driving home from somewhere, walking around the grocery store. And you could be listening to this like well acted, even with like sound effects and stuff like that, erotic story. And I'm like, that shit's powerful. Like
Yeah.
it's good. And so like that to me is an amazing gift to women around desire who miss it, who want to connect with their partner in that way, just don't feel that yearning much anymore. That can help, stimulate things and get them going. Now, again, you still need to figure out how to translate it to your partner without feeling like everything gets like, okay, that's gone now. So that's, for every couple, that's going to be different of what that looks like, of what they want a seduction scene to look like. Let me throw out one more thing that can be helpful too. If folks do, I tell folks to use like a 1 to 5 scale. That if they're like, okay, I want to connect physically with you. I don't know that my body's going to kick in sexually. I also know it's meaningful to you, but like on a 1 to 10 or 1 to 5 scale, I'm only at like a 2. So could we try like naked cuddling and just see if things open up for me, but they might not, but at least I'm not a no to you. At least we can still physically connect with each other. And I think that's really important, especially for the person who keeps initiating and has higher desire, that they don't always hear no, that you can get these creative ways of still connecting with them and saying yes.
Well, and I love that you normalized it, because I don't mean to be so stereotypical, but I think men in general feel rejected and don't understand the biological changes in women.
Yeah.
And, my friend's husband is probably so happy with me, because I was like, go have a nooner. You're exhausted at night. Go meet him 12 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but that is so great. Like the whole thing that sex is supposed to be at nighttime.
That's what I told
almost
her.
everybody's exhausted and wants to just zone out with Netflix or Instagram or something. Yeah, like it's really hard to get yourself going and be enthusiastic about anything physical. Yeah.
Yes.
That's good. That's awesome.
That was my prescription the other day.
I love it. I love it.
So most people are not so comfortable talking about sex.
Yeah.
And not only do I want us as women to be more comfortable, but I also want us to teach our kids to be comfortable.
Oh my gosh.
So can you give us some pointers?
Yeah. I mean, I think, well, first of all, no, starting at a really young age is one of the most important things. I think sometimes folks think, oh, my kid's 14, I need to have the sex talk now. And I'm like, no, actually, it's really great when you start at like age 3 or 4 around consent around their body. That they don't have to hug anybody they don't want to. They don't have to kiss, even if somebody gave them a gift and it's traditional in your family to go hug and kiss Aunt Sally. If you don't want to do that, like it's okay to just give a handshake or a wave or just a genuine thank you. So teaching kids body autonomy from a really young age, and that there's multiple ways, and that that to me is amazing, because I work with so many, like college students around consent and adults, and like folks don't even know their own boundaries and don't feel like they have a right to them. And so if you start learning that at age 4, that you're like, well, of course nobody gets to touch me if I don't want it. And of course I wouldn't touch someone else if they don't want it. And there's multiple ways to touch somebody, or to say thank you, or to show appreciation. So that to me is amazing. When parents are able to do that. And then just know there is always, it's not quote unquote the talk, it is an ongoing, safe, shame-free environment that you want to work on creating for your kids, even if it's just 5 minutes every few months, something as it's relevant. So, and I just said, creating those shame-free spaces for many parents, it's important to reflect on your own stuff. What baggage are you bringing to the table? What shame do you have? What assumptions, what fears? And doing, and like I've got lots of activities and stuff like that in my book, like just reflecting on what messages did you grow up with? Do you still carry them today? What didn't your parents do well around sex education? What are you afraid of for your kids? Because you bring all of that baggage to your conversations, and your kids can pick up on that stuff. They don't necessarily know what's going on, but they can pick up on it. So I think that's a really important ongoing step for parents. And then also, especially once the kids cross maybe age 11 or so, sometimes younger, sometimes later, if you do try to bring up topics, they're going to be like, no, I don't want to talk about it. But you know what? Doesn't matter. That as a parent, it's your job to say, like, I know this is uncomfortable or awkward. Kind of uncomfortable and awkward for me as well, to be honest, because we didn't grow up talking about these things. But I love and care about you so much and your well-being. I'm going to have these 5-minute awkward conversations with you every so often. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to, but I want you to know that I am always here for ongoing conversations, and I'm going to do my best to give you the space to ask questions and not react.
Such good words, because I'm a social worker, and I tell my kids I'm a social worker. I've heard so much. You can tell me anything. I mean, whether you're a social worker or not, but that's what I say to them.
That's awesome.
But they turn shades of all different colors, whether it's their period or sex or whatever, whatever I want to bring up. And I'm like, you need to know this stuff. And I think I needed your permission that it's okay. I mean, not to give them like 30 minutes,
Right.
But I mean, I always feel bad because they turn, like bright red. And I'm like, I know this is uncomfortable, but we got to talk about this stuff. And then I feel bad that they're so uncomfortable.
No, and I think acknowledging it and even saying, like, I get it, like, say we didn't grow up with these topics, or lots of folks are uncomfortable. I think just validating that, and say, unfortunately, we live in a society that isn't good about these topics that are so important to us. We're just not good, and we make them shameful or embarrassing, and they don't have to be. And and just like, I get why you're feeling that way. Yeah, no, I think that's great. That's awesome. You do that. Good.
I feel like I needed you to give me permission.
Yay.
Because I was in a position where I was feeling badly. So that is gone.
Good. Yay. I'll throw in one other thing for the parents out there. There's so many really good books out there. Like, just go to Amazon and read reviews, and you'll be able to find ones that match your values. And then depending on your kid's age, if they're young enough, you can read through it, and then you could sit and read through it with them. And then that's a really great way to create safety and trust around these topics. Now, again, once they become tweens or teenagers, they might not want to do that, but have those books, like, just leave one in their bedroom. Have one sitting out that they can see. And I guarantee at some point when you're not home and they're going to go seek it out and read stuff in it. So just so that the reliable resources are there, and they're not just like looking at porn and asking their friends and Googling random weird shit on TikTok.
Oh, God knows what my children are.
Sorry.
I can only imagine they know much more than I knew at their age. Let's put it that way.
But they have no context to actually understand it. That's the problem. So, like, they know, weird words and things like that, but they have no idea this big picture of what it really is to be a healthy sexual person and to connect with others in that way. They know a lot about performance. They don't know a lot about true intimacy.
No, and that's what we learned. We learned about how to do it, not how to feel it.
Yeah. And then now, because of pornography and because of social media, everything's a performance. So they know how to look good for others or perform in a way that they think they're going to, but that is not embodied sexuality, and it's not intimacy.
No. So what is one step today that a couple can take to improve their sexual relationship?
Ooh, so let me think to how to make this as general as possible, not knowing what folks are, because it, runs the gamut where everybody is in their sex life. Honestly, you know what? I'm going to go with like a playful thing. There's some really great decks of cards out there that you can get on Amazon. I've been using them with my partner recently. They're a freaking blast. And there's ones on relationships. It's like better, I don't know if it's better relationships and better sex. And so there's a red deck of cards. It's all these like general relationship questions. And then there's a black deck that's spicier. I use them in my talks now when I'm mingling with people ahead of time over cocktails and a couple comes up. I was like, all right, draw cards for each other. You don't have to answer in front of all of us, but draw. And so that's actually, that to me is good for couples that have been together for 3 months, or couples that have been together for 30 years, couples that are in a great place in their sex life, or couples that are struggling. Those type of like little easy games over like date nights together, or driving in a car when you've got 15 minutes together, those are easy. And I think they're good for everybody because they cultivate intimacy and openness and sharing.
You are so much fun. When are you coming to Buffalo, New York?
I know. It's funny. I was there right before COVID shutdown. I had a talk there.
Really?
Yeah. I wonder. Yeah, I'll have to see. All right, I can.
I will look for you. I will be the first to sign up to sit in your audience.
Thank you.
Well, you know that I could talk to you all day, but is there anything else that is super important to you that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, just this big picture of folks being kind to themselves. I mean, especially women. There's so, when you get a group of women together and you're like, okay, write a list of 20 things you don't like about yourself. And they're like, do. The list is, they're on 12 and you haven't even hit 1 minute yet. And then you're like, write a list of 5 things you really love and appreciate about yourself and your strengths. And they might struggle just to write those 5. And so I think, you were talking about permission before. It's important for us as women to give ourselves permission to own our strengths. And not just judge ourselves and beat ourselves up for our weaknesses. And no, and it doesn't make you not humble to own your strengths. It means you're loving and appreciating yourself. Pride doesn't have to be, but pride that you're like comparing yourself to other people and belittling others is not good. But pride in your genuine appreciation of what you bring to the table and your gifts, like that's fantastic. And I think giving permission to women overall to experience pride in that way and own their strengths. And just, again, this bigger picture of just be kind, be kind to yourself. You deserve it.
I think we're really good at being kind to others.
Yeah.
We could work on being kinder to ourselves.
Absolutely. Particularly women. Yeah.
Well, tell everybody where to find you in all the good places.
Hey, well, my main hub for my main website, that's my hub for my TEDx talks and my book and my podcasts and videos and just endless, is Dr. Jenn's Den. That's DrJennsDen.com. Honestly, folks can just go to Google and type in any spelling of Dr. Jenn's Den in any way that they want. You'll find me. And so that's my main hub. And then actually on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter, I'm Dr. Jenn's Den. That same spelling is my handle on all social media channels. So if this resonated with folks, please come find me, particularly on Instagram, probably because that's where I tend to engage with folks that listen to my podcast.
And you had courses too, I saw that.
Oh, yes.
Very intriguing.
Oh, yeah. One specifically on this topic of desire for women in long-term relationships who are struggling with desire. Yeah. If my approach to everything I said here resonates with you, then I have a whole online course on that. That's little short videos with lots of activities to do. And I've gotten feedback from some women that have sat down with their husbands and they've done it together and then paused. And the husbands were like, oh my God, I had no idea like this was a thing. Is this really a thing? And the woman's like, yeah, that's totally a thing. And so it can be a real bonding experience for couples as well. So yeah. And then I have another one for a relationship refresh, just for 10 days for couples to have a little activity for 30 minutes every day to boost their relationship. And then one on rewriting our sexual stories, which again ties to everything we're talking about here, like what experiences you've had or what have you inherited from society that's just not working for you. And then to realize you could totally rewrite your own sexual and intimacy stories and how to start doing that.
Well, I absolutely love the work that you're doing. I loved talking to you. I can't thank you enough for your time and expertise.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Your questions were fantastic. And thank you for what you're doing.
Oh my gosh, you're so sweet. I had more. I cut myself off.
That'll be part 2.
This is Rebecca Green, reminding everyone to spend every day laughing, learning, and loving.
Thank you for tuning in to the Whinypaluza podcast. If you like what you heard, please be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. While you are there, leave a review. I love to hear your feedback. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.